Do, 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 do. Meeting is now streaming live on Facebook. That's always good. Now, let's see. This morning, I've got a very special guest. Be afraid, everybody, be afraid. The rainbow goddess. I'll invite her on in a moment. So just bear with me while I just work this out here. I hope you're all keeping well, by the way. Funny weather we're having. Now, let's have a look. Put that there like that. Do this here. There we are. Be afraid, everybody. Okay. Turn that down. Iggy, nice to see you. Just bear with me while I share this. La, 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 la. No, I don't know how to do this. No, watch party, got no idea what that's about. Okay, well, we'll leave that because it's on my page. Right, Rainbow Goddess, I'm coming to get you. Huh? Bo, speak to me.
Am I on?
You're on. Let's see your face. There you are. What's
Hi.
that thing? What's that thing in the background saying party? Do you mean this now, or is somebody else having a party?
That's left up from when I had a birthday party online.
All right. How are you?
I like it. Really well, thank you. Yeah, how are you?
Yes, I'm plodding along. I've got no idea what's going on. That seems to be how I live my life. I just wake up, I tap my heart and I say, what's on the cards today? You know, and then I go deep and get a sense of, give us a clue what we're going to do today to play out, basically, you know. And you sent me just a link before. I've got no idea how to do that and play that thing, but we can put the link up certainly afterwards, or you can, or something like that.
Yeah.
So what's your name and where do you come from, number one?
Originally,
Yeah.
I was born as Hayley in Chorley in Lancashire, but you know, on the astral planes, I come from the original source point where we're all come from, you know. And in that realm, my name's Rainbow Goddess, and that's what I learnt when I was 32 and went on a journey, really open to endless possibilities, really open to facing fears and facing the unknown and facing a lot of the pain that was stored in my body. So yeah, and so I don't blow people's minds. I call myself Bo Focske.
Yeah.
Which is a bit of Rainbow Goddess and a bit of the biological family that nurtured me as a child before I became myself. So there you go.
So you're like a mixed methodology, really, aren't you?
Yeah.
I call that, you know, in statistical terms, we'll call that a quantitative approach. You know, it's a mixture of quantity and quality put together into some sort of meeting at the 0 point. I think that's how I see things these days. But, you know, how do we know each other, Hayley? See, I used to think that second name, because I couldn't say it properly, was Focske. And that makes a lot of sense to me, you know. But I remember our first conversation because I was trying to recruit people for one of the courses that I ran, you know, complementary and alternative medicine course. And you were on some sort of a adventure in Newquay, was it? Was it you were in a caravan in Newquay or Cornwall or something like that?
Basically, I just got back from 6 months traveling in Central America, and it was there where I really felt moved by spirit. Something else just came in on that journey and said, you've got this destiny, basically, you know. And I wanted to come back to the UK, and I felt like the world needed to know that spirit was real, that soul was real, that there was this extra level to us as a human species on this planet, that if everyone knew it and everyone believed it, the world would be a better place. And around that time, in that space in Guatemala, there were loads of people doing like little massage courses or meditation courses. And I thought I could stay here and live like this for the rest of my life, just giving massages if I wanted to. But I felt like science was the way to really wake the mind up in the West, the skeptical mind of the West. So my quest then was to come back to the UK. And I remember calling it this when you said in that first class, why are you here? And I said, I need paper power, mate. I need paper power so that people will believe what I'm saying, and then the world will be a better place. So I came back from that traveling experience and looked around for some sort of degree that I could do that would give me some sort of paper power so that people would believe me. And I found yours. And yours was the only one that had have me because they didn't have A levels because I went to college and obviously that weren't the right setup for me. And yeah, and when I rang you and we had that interview, I was actually in a camper van on my way down to Newquay with a friend, really hyped up, still with my dreadlocks and my shells in my hair and everything. Still with sand in my toenails, probably, from the beach.
I'll never forget that because we didn't used to do telephone interviews in that day, you know, but that was the first one I ever did. And I just got a sense of, you know, she's barking mad, but she's very enthusiastic. So why the hell not, you know, because I know that we were being guided at the time, you know, to meet one another and share these different experiences, you know. And I'm like you, as my mission is very clear. It's to bring the science of spirituality to the general population in words that can be understood, that make clear sense, you know. And that's what I try and do. I try and combine my understanding of the nervous system and try and then relate that to the invisible realms and stuff like that, you know, not going too far out, because I think if you go too far out, people switch off then, you know. And, you know, that's where I'm up to. So tell us about Guatemala and what went on there, like, and stuff.
There's a place in Guatemala called Santiago de Atitlan, and it's a small village on the side of a lake. And there it's like a convergence point. You know, we have these, you might call them chakras or vortexes on the earth where lots and lots of hippies all get together. And it's like, ooh, something's going on there. Like Glastonbury, for example, or Sedona. That's another one of those places. And so there's lots and lots of spiritual courses going on, lots of expats. And I met a wonderful lady from Austria who was doing meditation courses, and she's built a house now there and she's running amazing courses. Her whole quest is about empowering women who are suffering domestic violence so that they don't become the victim, but they're like in the power, and then the masculine will realize, shy away from that and not hit. So she really inspired me, and that's really where, like I say, it came alive in me. And while I was there as well, my granddad passed. Before I went traveling, I knew he was going to die because he had cancer, and I went and sat with him a lot and, you know, said my goodbyes and spoke to him about his journey after death and wished him well. And it was while I was there in the hostel called the Unicorn in the Venus dormitory, where he came to visit me as a butterfly, and it was there with me for 2 days, and I knew he died. And yeah, so lots of things went on just in a short space of time when I was staying there. And it really, yeah, like I say, ignited this whole kind of soul purpose in me. And he hadn't had that before. I was floating around before, mixing with searching for belonging, searching for my identity, you know, not really knowing who I was. And I met this guy who was a lot older than me in a nightclub, and he spoke about poetry and he spoke about Buddhism and things like that. And I think he was the first kind of gatekeeper into this path, the medicine path for me. And through his inspiration, that's when I started to think about wanting to go traveling. And then my brother lived with me and ended up getting us thrown out. So that was the kick up the arse to get going. And then I gave myself a month to get going, and I did. And yeah, it just all been unfolding since then, just like a beautiful journey, you know, layers and layers, and then shrinking back in and into the shadow and then emerging again, like a spiral dance really with myself and my spirit, you know, each layer a little bit more evolved, but very similar to the last layer when I was still working in it. So learning a bit more every time, like a little upgrade. Yeah.
So over the course of your travels, you dipped into, yeah, that's a good expression. You dipped into plant medicine and stuff like
Yeah,
that, you know. And so,
yeah.
you know, if I wanted to know anything about plant medicine, I would certainly come to you. You know, obviously I know a bit about it. I know a bit about the biochemistry of it and stuff like that, you know. And ayahuasca probably number one for popularity, I would say these days, you know, because of
I
its
think that
relation.
one's the most well known as well.
Yeah, yeah, I think that it's the most well known, and we have ayahuasca ceremonies. I've never taken ayahuasca myself. My plant medicine was alcohol, you know, and it was in alcohol because I was a sensitive person. It used to give me these um, different dimensional experiences. You know, a star child. Who's this? Who's this person?
This is little Frankel.
Frankel. All right,
Yeah.
son. How are you getting on? Yes. Oh God, there he is. Lovely. There's
I'll
a
just put
few.
him in his I'll just put him in his jumperoo and then I'll come back.
Yeah, all right, my love, no problem. Oh, steady on, Haley.
There we go. Okay,
Looks
go
like
on.
you looks like you're in a nice place there. That's my sort of place, that with that proper fire and all that sort of business, cottagey type. Anyway, to
Yeah.
go back, yeah, plant
Go on.
medicine. My thing was alcohol. I was addicted to alcohol for many years because of the effects that it gave me. It took me away from my ordinary mundane mind and it projected me into different dimensions of consciousness where sometimes I felt better. And that was the first hook, really, that when I took a certain amount of alcohol, it took me away from the misery of being me and it projected me into different dimensions of which I know is me now because, you know, we're all from source and therefore, you know, we're all the same in that regard. But I know now that I can't take anything. I live a completely and utterly clean life, you know. But I had many experiences with all sorts of additional things on top of alcohol during my drinking days, you know. And as a scientist, I sort of understood what was going on, that different chemical substances cause different dimensional effects to me. It took me to different worlds, if you like. But I know now that, and I'll keep calling you Bo or Haley. I'll just slip into that, so I hope you don't mind. But, you know, what it did was it made me realize that chemical substances can affect the way our biochemistry works, which affects the way that our nervous system works, that affects the way that our mind works. So you know that I talk about when people ask me, what do you do, Joe? I say I'm a psycho-neuro endocrino immunohematologist, right? And to me, that means that all our systems in our body are connected. But if you like, we can call this mind-body or body-mind medicine. And just to finish off with, I mean, my thing now is that we can change the way our heart works to change the way our head works, to make different, more healthy choices. That's where I'm up to now. And I'm not against anybody experimenting with anything at all, because we each have a soul's responsibility to be, to take actions and be responsible for the actions and the consequences of that. So I let people get on with it now. All I do is share my experience, my strength, and my hope, people, in as an honest as way as possible. And I'm not saying that anybody should do it the way I do it. I'm only ever talking about my personal lived experience. So to go back to, sorry about that big long thing there, but to go back to plant medicines, I talked about ayahuasca, and ayahuasca contains something called dimethyltryptamine, you know, DMT, which is a derivative of, it's like 5-hydroxytryptamine, which is serotonin, but it's just slightly biochemically changed. And I know now that you can get an increase in DMT by practicing various sort of natural substances, natural methods. So do you want to say something about your understanding of that, please, Bo?
Yeah, so I think when you look at the brain, you know, where you've got a synaptic cleft, the gap, and you've got chemical intelligence, basically. Let's not call them neurotransmitters, let's call them little guides that exist inside your brain, and they all have different kind of potential. And so, you know, when they mix with our emotions and they mix with our state of intelligence, they change things. So when we think about people that have got depression, you could link that to a depletion of serotonin. So the little guide in your brain that knows how to make you happy, he's a bit tired, he's a bit weary. And so when you look at things like magic mushrooms that are like a little bit like, shaped a little bit like the guide of happiness, you put that in the brain and it increases his power tenfold. So it's like you've put in a super ninja warrior for happiness inside the brain. But while he's also inside there with the magic mushrooms, what he's doing is he's shedding your ego. He's saying, oh, don't worry about shame. Don't worry about judgment. Don't even worry about separation. You're all a part of the cosmos. Now look at this through this different perspective that you can now see through. And so it's like keys, if you like, to open more intelligence and more emotionality so that you can have this altered state of consciousness experience, but then when you come back and it's worn off, it's about integrating those lessons, and that's where you have to be clever. And it's the same with the ayahuasca, with the jurema. I think what they do is enable this like explosion of intellect, spiritual intelligence, so that you can see things, hear things, understand things. And I also believe that we do exist in a universe which is one dimension, one frequency of dimension. So we're on a physical manifested plane. I think there's a celestial plane. I think there's also a realm where extraterrestrials can kind of work psychically with us. So they've got their own physical plane like we have on their own planet. Goodness knows how many light years away. But they've also got this like psychic realm, and it's where mediums work as well. And so depending on the ability of your brain to open those gateways to those dimensions, you can work like a medium. Or for some people, if you're taking these plant teachers, let's call them plant teachers, they can then open the door for you and enable you to have those conversations. So there's been times when I've been on LSD on the beach in Colombia and communicated with one of my best friends who died. And she was there. It was so real because I was enabled to be in that dimension of psychic communication with her consciousness. And then there's been other times where I took jurema, which is an Australian plant teacher, and it gave me this experience of communicating with Mother Nature, the spirit of Mother Nature. And she showed me her grief at how many times in past lives I died in the water, and that she couldn't do anything. She was the body of water that was drowning me, but she couldn't save me. And so she showed me the grief that she expressed. And what that did then for me as a human was upgrade my self-worth. You know, like I'd had issues with my mum, issues with my grandma. My grandma, she's a beautiful, practical, material lover. But what she hasn't got is a depth of compassion which can really see the individual. So I told her when I was a really little girl, I want to be a neurosurgeon. And she went, oh no, you've got to read so many books to do that. So it took me ages to come back to this path of neuropsychology, which I'm on now. And I think, goodness, if she'd have said, go on, you can do it, and really enabled that as a good mother figure, as a good matriarch, goodness knows where I'd be now with my potential. And then my mum, you know, she let me down, things were happening, there was abuse going on, and she wasn't in a courage enough, in a power enough, in a fierceness enough to save us as children from that. So there's so much rage that got projected onto her. So I was let down by these matriarchs. And then in this journey with the jurema, Mother Nature came through and showed me the essence of what it means to be mother. And in that moment, I remember just sitting, tears were streaming out of my face, and I just kept whispering, mother, mother, because I was so overwhelmed with this concept of the perfect kind of energy of mother. And so that healed so much in me, enabled me to accept both of these matriarchs in my physical human life, and upgraded our relationship, you know, as I integrated that. And now as I'm a mum for my son, I know that those qualities are in me now because of that meeting with Mother Nature in that psychic realm that was enabled by that jurema. And now, when you do meditations on your own, without any of these guides or enhancers or wisdom teachers, whatever you want to call them, you can tap into these dimensions. It takes discipline. And I think, you know, because you aren't putting something in, You have to have the right kind of diet. You know, you can't be doing things like drinking, smoking weed, because those things are blocking these gateways in your brain. And so for somebody like me who's not very disciplined in that, these wisdom teachers have been great enablers for me, great supporters for me. You know, when I get into trying to practice something, I'm a bit rubbish at it, so it makes me feel a bit shit about myself. So it's just not the way for me. But the way for you has been that way, and it's just really inspiring. You know, I want to let everybody know that you don't just have to go and ingest chemicals to have these altered states of consciousness. You truly can sit just with your meditations, you know, and develop a regular practice. And there's been other things, you know, like you can do like past life regressions, and they take hardly any effort, and they can be really profound. The technique that I work with, transformational healing, that's almost like a guided meditation where you're guided into the consciousness of the body, into the cells of the body, where so much trauma is trapped, and you're just encouraging a releasing of it and a releasing of it. And some of the imagery then that comes is like being taken on a medicine journey. You know, the most profound healing I've experienced is with that technique, and it's because I've not been enhanced by anything else. It was just me that allowed and allowed and allowed my body consciousness to really show me what's in my DNA, what have I been through. And once I was shown that I was Native American Indian, and the white people came, the colonizers came, and they were just ripping our village to shreds. And I was inside the teepee, and they had me bound, and they took an axe and they chopped my foot off. And in that moment, I could hear my body letting out the screams of terror. And the insight afterwards was like, wow, you know, is that a part of the fear I carry now, being a woman who wants to express herself shamanically, medicinally? You know, all the persecution I've suffered in my past lives, is it holding me back? And in letting out that fear, in acknowledging that what happened in the past through that meditation journey, healing, am I going to be clearer now in this life as Rainbow to be less afraid, to do more work, to be more on the medicine path? So there's different ways to it. And I think when we work in a sangha, which is spiritual community, when we're supported by other people on the same path, that can be another enhancer as well. And there's even scientific research, solid evidence to show when people meditate together, it enhances the field, the conscious field. And they did work in Washington, didn't they, where they all sat and meditated on a reduced crime rate, and it affected the statistics. So I think if you can maybe get together with a couple of mates and go, right, let's try this together, do it fun as an experiment, you know, and see what happens. I think that's a really good way in. Or if you really feel called, you know, find a ceremony space which is being held by somebody who's got great integrity, who's really protecting the space. Because when you are opening up to these other realms, you know, just like on this earth, there's paedophiles, there's rapists, there's robbers, there's people whose souls are out of alignment and aren't in integrity. In these other realms, there's also aspects of consciousness that are out of integrity and have needs and aren't responsible for themselves. So they'll come and they'll take, or they'll come in your journey and offer you things. So you have to be very careful that you have chosen somebody to guide you who knows what they're doing and who knows how to protect that space. So that's what I encourage. You know, whatever you feel drawn to, go for it, experiment. Just be responsible and make sure that you're safe.
Goodness, I was a bit concerned that we wouldn't have much to talk about, you know, but I'm not anymore. What you've said there, I mean, makes perfect sense to me. I didn't have a clue. I haven't got a clue about a lot of things, but I'm willing to learn a bit more every single day about me, you know, and then share that experience, and that maybe other people will resonate, you know, in a sort of way which will help them. That's my purpose, that I share, right, what I'm going through, the feelings that I've got. I mean, we are going through quite a volatile, uncertain, complex and very ambiguous time at the moment, you know, across the planet. And in 2000, yeah, go on.
1 second.
Yeah. Throw it, can you just put it outside the door?
Come here, Baba. Can you not bounce? Can you not? There you go. Is that better? Is that better? Can you bounce now? Are you bouncing? Whee! Turn it on. didn't put the cushion under his feet, so he couldn't bounce. So just hanging there in it.
Well, I think you're going to have trouble with him, I think. Right. I honestly believe, and this is my deepest feeling, that the children that are being born now, in fact, the rainbow children and the star seeds and stuff, I really feel that they're going to tell us the information that we need, and it's to try and listen at depth, soul to soul with these new children. And I think that they're bringing this information through. What does this really mean? And how, I've got no idea. It's just a deep feeling that I've got that they are bringing through the solutions that we need, because I think, as you say, we've been blocked in many, many ways from listening to the information. I got clearly this morning when I woke up, tell them this, Joe. I thought, oh, where we go. In order to get to the great beyond, you've got to go through it, right? You've got to go through it. You've got to feel your way through these things, because this moment, what we're going through at the moment is we have to embody this energy, embody it, and allow it to work through us. And I think that a lot of the medicinal things that I took...
Was it Terence McKenna who said, if you want to get into it, you've got to get out of it?
Oh, I didn't know. I don't know. But, Terence McKenna, he was an experimenter, wasn't he? I like that. Yeah. I listened to a lot of his stuff. No, it's all right. And what I'm saying, so in order to get beyond it, you've got to go through it. That's what I got as clear as anything. What does that mean? It means that everything that we're doing now, this great shift in consciousness, is like a great big cleansing wave that's actually cleaning us up as individuals and collectively. It's cleaning every single bit of our DNA up, right? That's been blocked through fear and pride, not just our own personal stuff, but our ancestral stuff, right back to source. So if we need to go and see and feel and be the original face of the universe, then we have to let go and allow all this stuff to come up and through us. And that's where I come in with my mindful breathing and mindful spaciousness, if you like. It's to become an observer and a witness of your own play. It's not to get emotionally engaged with the emotions that have come up, because that's the problem. If you hook onto it, it will take you away and it will take you back into your head. But if you can stay detached and watch and experience the feelings without your head getting in to try and analyze it, then that's the way to let things go. And when you see them in the distance, then you get a greater understanding of what this whole human divine thing is all about. Your go.
It's Muji. His work is all about that. Just sitting in the awareness and not being attached to the story. But I think for a lot of humans, it's really hard because we have all got so much stuff that we're carrying. So my thing is all about feeling it to heal it. So not getting attached to the emotion and being a victim to it, getting stuck with a pain complex and these definitions that we put on ourselves, like I've been abused, so I'm broken. Those kinds of things, not allowing it to disempower, but actually going into the body and feeling all of the pain that comes with it, birthing it and clearing it. And that's what I'm into. And for me, that's where on the other side, the biggest shifts have happened. So I acknowledge once with mushrooms that there was so much rage and that I couldn't sing in front of people. I just couldn't do it. And there was so much stuff trapped here, the things that I needed to say, the no's that I should have screamed when bad things were happening. I exist. I should have screamed to my mum when I needed her.
Just excuse me one sec, excuse me. Carry on talking.
So the screams that I needed to say, like, I'm here, I exist, I'm alive, I'm worth something. Stop treating me like shit, world. And I remember in this one specific journey, I was with my dad, who had let me down a lot, and his mate. And there were this thing, what he were doing, he were like kind of like pushing me a little bit. And I opened my throat and I let out this mighty roar. And since then, my voice has been bigger. It's enabled some sort of more poetic articulation to come through. It's enabled me to speak to people in a bigger way, in a more assertive, direct way. There's no holding back. And then that was seconded then with a journey with the transformational healing, where again I was made to face my rage. Stuff was going on with and a master's at uni, and this lecturer that had really, you know, embarrassed me in front of the whole cohort, and he would not own it. He just would not. We ended up getting lawyers in, mediators in. I did a second stage formal complaint. I left the master's course, and he never apologized. So there was this like rage that had not been acknowledged, and it was, what about me? What about me? What about me? And then I allowed my body just to play out all of this rage, and it was violent, but it was righteous, and it was conscious, because I wasn't going out in the world bullying people, making them the victim of my rage. You know, I owned it, and I healed it, and I cleared it in that space. But it meant that my body did this really like warrior dance. There was a body in front of me. I severed its head. I urinated over it and really claimed my own personal power. And then since then, I was able to tell my mum about the things that she did that wasn't right, but with such a compassion that didn't make her have to change for me to heal. I was the one that cleared it. And then I just said to her, you know, you can go and clear this if you want to, but it doesn't matter to me anymore whether you change or not. I see what you did. It wasn't all right. You should have done it better, but I forgive you. And mine and her relationship changed then in a moment. And she couldn't articulate her feelings like me. So she just hugged me and said, I'll write you a letter. And in that letter came all of the acknowledgement and the deep sorry for allowing this man to just do whatever he wanted with the kids while she was there, you know, and it made such a difference. And the future changed. Before that moment, I always thought I'd never let her near my kids, or would just always have a superficial relationship. But literally, since reading that letter, there was this like super cosmic experience where this wormhole portal connected my heart to her heart, and a door came down where I could love her, and then she could also love me back because I wasn't blocking it. And then I wrote her this song, and we both cried, and we've had these intimate moments, and she's so loving now. And when I did get pregnant, she cried, so she's become this emotional person. She's actually gone into her heart and opened to a deeper love through me processing my own rage. So, you know, the possibilities really are endless here when you think about going into the body and actually moving through some stuff that's trapped in there, and then the shifts that occur in life afterwards when you've integrated it. And it's so empowering. I think a lot of people have been so stunted with their emotional intelligence through Western industrialized schooling, through phrases like big boys don't cry, through shaming, you know, women that are in a really neurotic state. You know, like if your son dies, you want to flail around in grief and smash things up. But if a woman were doing that on the street, it'd be 10 minutes before the ambulances came. She'd be sectioned, drugged up, all that pain would be stored in her body, and she'd never be able to process it right. Where if you go to Mexico, they just offer her some soup. She might whack it away, but they go, it's all right, she's still grieving. Just wrap a blanket around her next week if she wants one. You know, and the community hold the space for that. But over here, we're so stunted, so limited. So people, in my experience, I've noticed they're afraid to feel, first and foremost. They're afraid. And not just of the negative stuff, but of joy and of love. And this is Raven. Raven's not afraid of love or joy. She loves it. She can't get enough.
This is fascinating. I mean, that's my thing, because I do a lot of bioenergetic exercises and help people to release trapped emotional energy. And I do a lot of work with fellas as well, you know, because fellas they repress and suppress emotions, you know. But what happened to me is when I started to wake up, I started to be filled with this same fury about what had happened to me in the past and stuff like this. Raven.
We are taking you seriously.
No, I know that. I don't care. I'm just talking. But yeah, so I understand and I completely agree with what you're saying. And when I say is to watch the play without getting emotionally engaged, what I mean is to don't take the bait of the emotion, right? But feel it and allow it to transform through an open and flowing heart, you know.
Yeah.
And that's
that
why
might look like a sob that lasts for an hour and a half, and it might look like some weird scream, some weird body shake that the person feels really freaked out to let happen. But what I say is, let go and let it happen, because you're not going to die, you're not going to explode, you're just going to let go of something that's been holding you back so much, and on the other side there's just this breath of life that will come in, and like you say, this heart just boom open, and who knows what you'll become after letting go.
Well, that's again, it's about being and becoming at the same time, isn't it? As this energy, as we accept and surrender that we don't know what's going on at the ego level. Once the ego says, I'm not sure what's happening anymore, that's like the opening point, really. Then the light comes through that then. And if you can really accept and surrender that there's an innate intelligence deep within us that will work through us and open us up to an ever-expanding consciousness, then that's, to me, what it's all about. I didn't have a clue about this because the first half of my life was as a biomedical scientist. So all I ever saw was through a left linear, logical, closed down brain, you know, and anything outside of my science box, if you like, was nonsense to me. I nearly said bollocks then, but oh God, but it was nonsense to me. And I disregarded it, you know, and I can completely see that as a child, I was open and free there. That my right brain, which to me is the wave brain, you know, we have a wave and then we have a particle. And I think that that infinity signal means that we take information in from the cosmos. It comes in through our right brain, which is synonymous with the feminine, right?
Keep talking.
So, it's the feminine aspect, and then it cuts across then part of our brain, this corpus callosum, and that's like an analog digital converter. And then we could become digitized and materialized then and particulate. So I think that's how it works. But when the particle experiences it, then it can then be moved back into this oceanic consciousness where we pick up more and more information. So where I'm up to now, Haley Bow, where I'm up to is I see that the heart represents, if you like, the Christ. This is where I'm up to. I don't have a religion anymore. I don't put any labels on anything. But my feeling is that the heart and the heart of hearts is the Christ center. And I think that's sort of aligned now to the 13th chakra. And where I'm up to with the heart is, I think once you start working from the heart, which is the sort of the principle of self-mastery, I think once that starts to open, I think it then connects, the heart connects then through the 12 cranial nerves with the 12 meridians. And I think we expand out there because it's all about 12s to me. And I think these different aspects of consciousness represent 12 intelligences that reside in every single human being. And I think that the more that you work with your heart, the more these intelligences come online, and then you get shown then which ones to practice on a daily basis. So there's almost like intelligence is expanding, but you've got to be guided and navigated through this process from the heart of hearts. So if you like, the soul. So this is part of the soul's journey in opening up. And I see this, I'll shut up in a minute, but I see this is linked with the embodiment that's going on. If we allow this energy of the soul to come through, kick away all the dross that's been there for years and years, and we'll expand and clean up these channels that have been blocked, I think people will more and more understand what this is all about. We don't need to tell them. My view is that we just need to give them practical techniques, right, in order to allow this process to go forward. What do you think about that then?
I really agree. And I've read Rona Herman, she channels Archangel Michael, and in there's talk of the 12 original monadic tribes of intelligence. And other people I've read about, they're like the Elohim, the angelic Elohim, and there were 12 of them. So these, I agree with you. I've found that myself in my own questing, these 12 intelligences. And when you talk about the heart, you know, for years and years, it's like all about love. Where's the love? And it seems like such a new age concept. But when you come at it from this physiological perspective and this more intelligent, spiritual, intelligent perspective, not just like a wishy-washy, new agey kind of perspective, but when you're really understanding the truth of the universe, love in itself is an intelligence, isn't it? And so when you surrender yourself to that, the love intelligence, you have to go through a bit of chaos first, I think, like you say, to get rid of the dross. So in the way that I work with people, it's about moving through those chaotic, cathartic states of healing. But really what you're doing is surrendering to love. That's what you're doing. You're surrendering to love's intelligence. You're surrendering your fear to the love that you have for yourself in wanting to progress and move forward. The love that you have for this whole kind of game of reality as being somebody that can be responsible for the earth and for the future of it. And you're allowing love to move you. And sometimes, you know, like love doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. It's hard. But you know, in those places, they're initiations into greater power and greater strength, less fear. And yeah, I think that like what we're realizing is like it's always been true what these hippies have been saying. It is all about love. It really is. But we're learning a way of working with it as an actual um, thing that we can embody and work with, not just something that we say when we stick two fingers up, you know, peace, man, love you, man.
Yeah.
Or when we're off our heads on ease in a nightclub, or love you, man. It's like, what does it really mean to love your neighbour? Let's think about that for a minute. What does it really mean to love the paedophile who fucked you up when you were a kid? Sorry for swearing. You know, what does it really mean to love that person who's, you know, being an idiot in the supermarket and not keeping the 2 meters distance? What does it really mean to allow
But
love to move you in those moments, isn't it?
Madonna told us, didn't she? She said, love is understanding. That was Madonna, you know. And talking about Madonnas, since I was a child, I've always had a vision in my dream about this divine feminine, you know, and I know now. And I didn't understand this, and it drove me and it motivated me all my life. And I've always had this picture, if you like, of this divine princess, divine feminine, since I was a child, you know. And I know now that this divine feminine energy has been guiding me all my life. I know that, you know. And when I started to get into this spirituality stuff, other people were sharing the same sort of stories. And so, if you like, I found a tribe of people who weren't making it up. They were just expressing the stuff that came to them. And I know that I've been guided all my life by something called the Magdalene energy, you know. And before that, you know, I was guided to ancient Egypt and into the understanding of how the Egyptians, the ancient Egyptians, saw things, right? And I started off with something, a fascination with a being called Imhotep, you know, and he was into vibrational medicine, right? He was into energy medicine, and he was into all the stuff that I'm really, really interested in. We've never had this sort of behavior on the live show before. This is a first for me.
This is another expression of the divine feminine. I
Yeah,
am the Mother Nature river feeding my son. It's
fine,
amazing, isn't it?
fine by me. I
I
was going to
think
say, don't be milking it now. I was going to say, but that's just a little joke coming in. So, what I'm saying is that all my life I've been guided from different dimensions by this vision, this image, this force, this flow. And what I've realized is there's a complete difference between what is human love and what is divine love. Because unconditional love just flows, it just gives without any conditions. And I
but this
think
is
when,
altruism, isn't it? It's
yeah,
altruism or it's agape love.
yeah,
It is. And it's
it is.
hard. It's hard to do that.
And we have the divine masculine, which is the eros, which is the erotic side, it's the driving force, you know. So there's almost like a masculine feminine imbalance across the world at the moment that's being reset now by the flowing of this unconditional feminine energy that's coming back to reset. And my work, my PhD, was about this rebalancing at the level of the heart. It's called, as you know, it's called cardiac sympathovagal balance, you know, for anybody who's into science. And how do you get to that? Well, there's two techniques that you can use. Well, there's actually one combined technique. It's you get in touch with the feeling that brings with it a feeling of love and care and compassion. So how to get to that is you can imagine your favorite child. If you've got a favorite child, bring the picture of this child in. It will bring with it this loving feeling, and then breathe this love. You can dismiss the picture of the child then, right? Get shut of them. They've served their purpose, right? So stay with the feeling and then breathe this feeling in for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in. Stop for 2 seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 out. Stop for 2 seconds. It's so simple. It's heart and soul focused. And if you practice that for 3 10-minute sessions a day for 90 days, you can say 90 days because that's about the time. your connections in your brain, as you know, the neural patterns in your brain would change because of the plasticity of your brain. You're practicing and creating new neural pathways that are associated with an open and flowingness. Now, I didn't know I was going to go on about this, but go on. It's your go now.
We're going to talk about the insula and empathy, and neurotypical versus not neurotypical humans and adolescents. And I did a talk once at a health conference and brought in loads of like quantum mechanics and talked about chakras and got them all meditating. But I started off by showing them neuroscience of empathy, and you can see it in you know callous adolescents or adolescents that do what we might look at as horrific things to other people. They're lacking in these areas in the brain. They've not got enough grey matter there to support empathy and the empathetic networks. And you're right, any type of meditative discipline does enhance the brain's potential and power to hold space for these things, and also increases grey matter volume. So you're right, I preach this myself in a lot of things that I've done, the power of sitting and meditating. And then the other thing I wanted to say was, what you're doing there through your science is what the Buddhists call the metta meditation. I don't know if you ever come across that. For them, metta is loving kindness, and it's about sharing it. And so they have a meditation similar to yours, which goes through 5 stages, all about trying to cultivate these feelings of loving kindness or karuna in the heart, which is about like not getting attached to somebody else and being responsible for them, but in that moment just feeling that love and that sharing, that kinship, that connected kinship. And it's so beneficial, really is so beneficial. And the neuroscience shows that when you do this specific metta bhavana meditation, it increases grey matter volume in the insula. So it really is increasing your capacity to be empathetic. And that doesn't just relate to other people, but also, to yourself. There's a stage in there where you have to sit with yourself and give this love to yourself in the visualization. And that's really hard sometimes,
Of course it is. And to do that and to sit there in this meditation and send this love out to those that have hurt you, that's a really big step forward. And that's where forgiveness is never really about the other person. It's about taking gently the hook out of yourself and allowing them to be free as well, And this, as you know, is about what quantum reality is all about. It's multi-dimensional. We've got so many hooks in us from our own personal life and our own ancestry that really it's about finding the hooks. So every time we get triggered by something and emotionally take the bait, it's a learning episode. But, normally most people don't know this, like I didn't myself. If I took the bait, I would immediately emotionally react and blame something outside of myself. But these days, most of the time, when the trigger comes in, I can take a mindful step back and almost say, what is this trying to show me? Where am I hooked? How do I deal with this next? Buddha said, probably the most famous thing he said was, how do I reach enlightenment? Whatever that means, just means freedom of spirit, is just become aware of your breathing. And that was the whole focus, as you know, about my PhD. It's how breath and how the differences in breathing impact the way our brain waves work and how we respond to life. So the heart, as we know now, is electromagnetically 40 or God knows how many times much more powerful than the brain. But we in the West, we've put the head as being more important. And to me, this is where the seat of stinking thinking is. And this is where the release of this stinking thinking comes from. It's just about breathing.
Yeah. Or like when you go to the heart, for me, like when I surrender to love's intelligence, whether that's, on a daily basis, just randomly, like as I make decisions, or if I'm doing something deeper, like surrendering to the medicine or surrendering to, my body in this healing process, there's like this like an upgrade. I forget that. I forgot what my point was now.
Okay.
Forget that. I forgot what my point was.
Yeah,
I hate it when that happens.
It's all right. I think I say that we have to go deeper. we have to go deeper to get higher. I think the more we sink in and let go and surrender deeper into our soul space, if you like, the higher and the more wide our expansiousness becomes. You know, so it's this paradoxical, if you like, bipolarity that we get into. You know, do us a favor now, tell us about massage and aromatherapy, and are these things that you would advocate as being positive things to help people?
With my own business, when I did that first course with you, I went off and I became a professional aromatherapist. Some of the clients that I work with had very profound experiences because a lot of them, they aren't being touched. Affection is a language of love, and for them to receive that was amazing. I had a contract in an old people's home, and there was a couple of ladies that were paralysed, and I went and I just massaged the legs and spoke to them, and they told me stories. A couple of them had strokes and they were in wheelchairs, and it was just so wonderful for them to receive love from somebody else in the form of touch. And then you come to the consciousness of these, not just these hallucinogenic plant teachers have been talking about, but the consciousness of our flowers, lavender, grandmother lavender. And not only do plant medicines affect your neurochemistry in your brain, but release these guides, affect your emotions and your intelligence. All the plants that become essential oils also have psycho properties where they're enhancing the biochemistry of your body to enable you to experience healing, upgrades, shifted states of consciousness. And as I started to realise this and moved through the second degree, and I went to South America, and that's when I met, you know, grandmother ayahuasca and all that kind of stuff. When I came back, this aromatherapy massage became soul massage then. And I integrated. I'll just put him back in the bouncer. I'm nearly finished now, Papa. You're doing really well. You are. I'm so proud of you, being so patient with Mummy. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Want a bouncy? Bouncy, bouncy. So I integrated the wisdom of this kind of consciousness of the plants, and I would only use frankincense then.
Your sound's gone off for some reason.
Someone was just ringing me.
Oh, okay.
But frankincense is metaphysical properties, so not physiological as in what happens to your body, but metaphysical as in the spiritual, these other dimensions of consciousness we're talking about, enables like a deeper connection to source or to love. So I'd work with frankincense, which would be deeply relaxing physiologically for the body, but enable that person to be in the heart. And then I'd work more shamanically with them, energetically, and tune into my heart, my love, and do a bit of light work as well. So it weren't just the touch and the you know, the physical benefits that come from massage, and it was also the love. And then sometimes, depending on the client, we'd do a bit of tantric work, which would help them to release shame around abuse if they'd had it. Some of them, it was more shamanic in that they needed to release their own stuff, so I'd just hold the space for that and allow, you know, whatever happened. And it became a much more deeper healing process then, as I've evolved my aromatherapy massage. And that treatment was like 2.5, 3 hours. So it was a really deep journey. And sometimes I'd take flowers, I'd do a bit of, you know, sound medicine over them with Tibetan singing bowls or my shamanic drum or rattles. Sometimes I'd take rose petals and kiss them with the rose, and, you know, at the end, just let the rose petals fall on them. And some of these people have really been, moved by that, like on a deeper level, just than having a sports massage would untie your knots, which is really great relief. Some of them, you know, like I say, could move through shame, and embrace being touched and loved. One of my clients, Andrew, he'd been single for a long time, and he was really, you know, bound by this love he'd had for this girl who left him when he was in his early 20s, and he was in his early 40s, really depressed and so afraid, so deeply yearning to be loved and seen and acknowledged, you know. And we did this journey together, Because I used to do this thing called spiritual psychotherapy, where it'd be a whole day. The beginning would be like, tell me your story, let's get it all out, find the roots. The middle of the day, I'd be pushing them to release all this stuff, and it'd be really chaotic. And then I'd finish with one of these soul massages. And for him, it was just so transformative, you know, like being loved by a woman, being seen by a woman. And that to me is like this priestess energy of the Magdalene. That's what we went to learn in the priestess temples in ancient Egypt.
Yep.
How to use this unconditional love to make somebody else feel seen and held and loved and supported, to heal the matriarchal scars, to heal the patriarchal scars, you know, to help those little inner children, you know.
I
So
agree.
massage and essential oils, yeah, go for it, get involved.
I think drumming as well, because I do, when I get into certain drumming rhythms, that comes in immediately. This is a new drum I've bought. It's one I put me washing in, you know, for washing and stuff. But there's so many things to do with vibrational stuff, you know, energy healing and stuff. And I think more and more people are looking for alternatives, not alternative, complementary to medicine. Let's do it that way, you know, an alternative as well. And it's what works for the individual. I'm like you. I do a lot of deep remedial massage on people and actually go into their organs. And there's a whole load of energy that gets released from their organs, especially around the solar plexus region as well. And that whole area, that mid band, you know, that's where egocentricity is really. And there's so many things that we could talk about. But the spleen's just seen as a sort of a cleansing agent. And it's so blocked in many people because the heart and the spleen are intimately and intricately connected. So sometimes when you work deep in the solar plexus and work with the spleen and the stomach and the liver, all that stuff to do with energy, sometimes that can release massive blocks. Now, when I work with fellas, you can see in their eyes, you know, when you can see stuff coming up, right, and feel it, you know, it's to try and encourage them to basically just cry their leg off for as long as it takes, you know. And I think if fellas can let themselves go and do that in the space of somebody who's understanding and has been through the process, then it helps them immensely. So I agree with what you were saying before, is we need to be more emotionally intelligent and emotionally aware, and we need to be able to use this trapped fury, if you like, in a transformative way for the power of good rather than destruction.
Yeah, I really agree. That's what I was saying before. When I lost my point, it was about when you do allow yourself to go through this kind of surrendering, let the chaos happen in a contained, safe environment, especially if you're being held by a beautiful healer, you know, then what happens is this upgrade to your emotional intelligence. You realize without being told, it's okay to feel. It's not scary. The world doesn't end. My body doesn't explode. I'm not going to die. All those paradigms that I've been taught are a load of bollocks. It is about feeling, and we become more alive and more human. And I think, you know, like you're saying about the West and schooling, we have been very academic. It's been very much about the head, but we're not intellectual beings. We're intuitive, emotive beings. And so if you can get more into your emotions, you can live more fully and more presently as a human, you know, and you're not wanting to like dumb things down. You like it a lot of the time. We reach for maladaptive coping strategies. We reach for a cigarette. We reach for a piece of cake. We turn the TV on. We need to drown it out. And it's because really we're afraid and we're so unconscious of the relationship we have to our emotional body. A lot of the time we don't even realize that we're doing it. But if we can be more emotionally intelligent in those moments when you might just be about to unconsciously turn the telly off because something's about to happen, you can relish that as an opportunity for healing and clearing, and then sit down and watch TV after you've done the work. And
I think,
you're less afraid.
no, you're right. I mean, most people just live a life in the head, don't they? We're like heads on sticks, really. And
Yeah.
we've disconnected and dissociated ourselves from our body sensations, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think modern medicine tends to help people to do that even more. You know, it can give them substances to more or less anesthetize them from the horrible feelings that they're having, you know. And I think my job as well as yours, I think, is to put people back in touch with who they are bodily. You know, as my mate Todd Medina says, you know, the human is the hero. We've done all this head work, this fantasy island stuff. It's now to bring it back and get back to Mother Earth, you know. So I do a lot of barefoot stuff, primal screaming, and I do a lot of running. Well, it's like running, brisk walking really these days, but I do that because it changes the way I breathe and it sends me into different dimensions while I'm running, you know. And there's a technique, and I'm sure you're aware of it, called holotropic breathing,
Yeah.
you know.
Or
And with
shamanic breath work,
yeah,
fire
well, okay,
breathing, goes by all
cool.
these different names, doesn't it?
Well,
Diaphragmatic breathing.
yeah, anything at all to understand that, and even the way that we, you know, pranayama or pranayam or whatever you want to call it, you know, the way that we breathe through our nostrils also impacts upon the way our brain waves work as well. You know, the left nostril is associated with this Ida and Pingala, you know, so there's different things. One's the sun breath, one's moon breath, one's masculine, one's feminine. Well, we've known nothing at all about how a human being operates. And I think that what people like us, we're just learning now, right, a bit more about ourselves. And then I think it's incumbent upon us to just pass that information on so that people can learn more about themselves, you know,
Yeah.
because intuition means to get in touch, as far as I see, with your inner teacher and not be so dependent on experts outside of ourselves, because everything that we need to know is in here, you know. What do you think about that?
I agree, totally agree. When we do the transformational healing, I'm not a healer, I'm a facilitator.
Yeah.
I facilitate a safe space where you can go deep in your own self. And I also facilitate maybe a bit more courage, or facilitate a little shove over the edge into yourself, or facilitate an encouraging word just so that you can let go and surrender to yourself. That's all I do. Facilitate that. And then in the end, you journey yourself. And at the end, we bring in truth. After you've done all the gnarly stuff, after you've made all the screams and like watch yourself writhe around on the floor and maybe even vomited and loads of snots come out or whatever, you know, which is just the miasma that carries the codes inside your body.
Yeah.
That's it. That's when you cry and when you snot and you have a really good, it's like just all the codes of all that pain just coming out in a physical form like a miasma. Anyway, when you've gone through all that, at the end, we do this thing called truth, where you just breathe in this truth, this concept, and it's there where you have these most profound, like, amazing experiences with the light dimensions, where the angels come in, where you realize and embody the truth of what you are, this universal love consciousness. It's
I agree.
amazing.
I
And I
agree.
wanted to say something before, you know, when you were talking about this divine feminine essence,
Yeah.
like we've been indoctrinated since ancient Egypt changed from being, you know, like having a pantheon of gods, so having one male patriarchy, and then we had this like Christianity where the gods are man. Oh, mind the baby. And yeah, before that, like 2,500 years ago, before that, all religions, all kind of spiritual practices were woman centered. And you can go back 80,000 years and they found um like little statues, you know, when they've done what's it called? Not architecture, archaeology.
Yeah.
They found statues and it's all the crone. And so they knew that this wisdom, this universal intelligence, this love, it's divinely feminine, it's benevolent, it's compassionate, it's giving, and these aren't women qualities, gender, female qualities. These are the feminine in their essence,
Yep.
you know, and that's what you're on about in it, this divine feminine energy coming back now. It's not about like, oh, let's all start wearing dresses and headdresses and calling ourselves rainbow goddess. Let's not do that. It's not what it's about. It's about embracing these qualities. And with you saying about the Magdalene, I came to her myself through my own journey, and there's a Gospel of Mary. So there's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John in the Bible. She also wrote one, and they didn't put it in, and it's basically about getting over envy, getting over attachment to the body, getting over your pain, basically, so that you can drink in the divinity of yourself, so that you can realize that you are this love, just manifesting human form, having this amazing experience where you can see the other, see yourself through your own eyes and not just be on your own in solitary peace. You know, like that's, I think, what we wanted, to have this experience of feeling and, you know, like right from the beginning, there was just this whole sense of like joyful play, like, oh, I've realised I'm a consciousness. Oh, what shall I do? And I read this book once, and the description at the beginning was really beautiful. And it talked about the void, and this consciousness became aware of itself as this mother, and then it birthed these 12 aspects, which were the signs of the zodiac, each with their individual qualities. And then there was this appreciation of like, wow, look at that, and look at that, and look at that, and what else can we become? And then all of a sudden there's the planets, and all of a sudden there's all these elves and all these fairies, and then there's these humans. And then you think about Tolkien and his whole journey to the Lord of the Rings, his history before the Lord of the Rings. Can't remember what it's called now, but that book is all about that, you know. And they come to this like original god, these other child gods, and one of them's the dark sorcerer, and it comes and it says, what have you brought as your gift? And the other ones before come and he says, what have you brought as your gift? And one brings this vibration and it becomes the water, and another one brings vibration and it becomes the earth. And then all of a sudden this other one comes and it brings this vibration and it's a bit out of tune, and that becomes the darkness and the orcs.
Yeah.
And I just think that's wonderful, you know, like, where does the evil come from? Maybe it is just a bit of vibration out of tune, like if in the orchestra, if the trumpet were drunken like before.
I see that we're going through a reharmonization process. Couldn't agree more. Right, kiddo, it's time. I've got to go and do proper work now instead of all this talking.
Yeah, so, this dog and this baby they've done so well, haven't they, the dog and the baby?
Oh, fantastic.
I'm so proud of them.
Next time, lock them in the shed together next time. No.
Good boy. Got any final words, Raven? Chuck them.
So, listen, kiddo, thank you so much. It's been lovely talking to you. We'll have to do this again somewhere down the line.
I just wanted to say to everybody that's listening, like, I've done a lot of work with mushrooms in ceremony, and their higher intelligence once gave me a song. And this song is a bit like a meditation, a bit like a journey, and there's guidance from these wisdom teachers in the words. And so I recorded it with a friend of mine who's incredible at guitar, Francesco, who lives in Italy. And I want to offer that. So if anybody wants to like just get really comfy, put the headphones on and take 8 minutes out of your life just to sit and be with the transmission, I'd really, really love for you to experience it. So we'll upload it on here.
Fantastic. And I'll do that myself as well, because I heard a little bit of it before, but I wasn't quite sure how to put it onto the link.
Yeah, and celebrate, you know, like this healing, because through birthing all my rage meant that I could sing. Yeah. Couldn't sing before.
I'll listen to it. I'll decide whether you're a good singer or not. All right then. So.
All right, Joe.
Thanks, love. And the same to you.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a beautiful day.
All right.
It's all about the love, man. It's all about the love.
It is. Go off then and try and behave yourself. I know that's hard, but I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.